Welcome, sports fans. I'm Craig Cortello.
And I'm Kyle Cortello.
And we are
the Italian Sports Guys.
Bada-Boom.
Bada-Bing.
Leave the gun.
Take the cannolis you hit.
It's a weekly sports talk show with an Italian New Orleans twist. So grab a beer or a little red vino.
Some pizza pie and some pasta marinara here.
Throw on your favorite sports jersey.
Hey, join us. Why don't you?
All right, Kyle, good to be back here with the ISG Nation. This is Italian Sports Guys Show, the training camp edition, which means we're getting close to the regular season.
Benvenuti, Craig.
Benvenuti, Kyle. Good to be here. Of course, in preseason, there's always some speculation, some hope, some question.
Everybody's undefeated.
Everybody's undefeated.
Sure.
I guess the biggest question for me with the Saints is I think there are some pieces that are to be excited about, some new faces in this coaching staff, of course, offensive coordinator. The question is that enough to overcome the holes that we see in this roster?
I think they're better than they were a year ago, and that's
Yeah,
what you have to ask yourself. Yeah. I think from the sum of all the parts is better. You're going to miss some of the players that are gone, but I think all in all, there just seems to be a look of a little bit more confidence, some assurity, some certainty about their identity now. It's Dennis Allen's show now. I mean, there's nobody really on staff left over from Sean Payton aside from him and maybe one other guy on the defensive side of the ball. I think the linebacker coach, Mike Hodges, but it's an entirely new offensive staff. And so I think we're going to find out sink or swim time for him, you know. Yeah,
and I think you look at, obviously, it happens a lot. The defense has been ahead of the offense. So the early reports from camp were, of course, a lot of disruption on the defensive line, and offense seems to be catching up the last few practices. Some nice efforts from the quarterbacks and from some of the wide receivers. But I still think this team, when all is said and done, is going to have to be a really, really strong defensive team and do enough offensively to win.
I think that's right too. I mean, look, the last couple of years they've hung their hat on the defense to be as good as they could possibly. The success that they experienced relatively on the coattails of what the defense has done. The offense was just good enough. I think that's going to be the case again this year, but I think this new look offense has a lot of people excited within the organization. You can hear it from the players when they do interviews at camp right now. And I think the biggest reason for that, you have a lot of different looks, a lot of new motion, but more importantly, I think the terminology is much simpler.
Yeah.
Pete Carmichael knew what he knew. He was here for 15 years with Sean and Drew. Okay? That's tough to change that up. You just know what you know.
Yeah.
The play calls, the verbiage was very long, much less everything else. I think that was a problem for Derek Carr last year too. So, and he was coming in as a new guy, kind of, trying to establish his personality with his new teammates, learning a new offense, and it didn't go very well for the first half of the season. So I think now everybody started from scratch with Clint Kubiak's offense, and you can tell he's just feeling a lot better about himself. So
yeah, I think certainly the numbers he put up the second half of the season, combined with the new offensive coordinator coming in, I think it gives you some reason to be optimistic on the offensive side. Some upside potential, so to speak. Sure. Anyway, let's get into some of the details, Kyle. We looked at. I mentioned the defense getting out in front of the offense early on. We heard a lot about the disruptive force that the defensive line has been. Now you wonder if that's because of the Saints' offensive line they're
crappy our line is.
But if you get into some of the details, look, we took a shot on Chase Young. We talked about it before the show. $12 million 1 year, coming off a little bit of a neck injury, but to me, it was a great risk to take because this guy's a number 2 overall. And it's really been disruptive from what we're hearing in camp.
Yeah, from a source that's there told me he's been the best player on this team, both sides of the ball, all through camp. Now it's camp. Let's see how he holds up. The injury does come into play.
Yeah.
You're in full pads now, but they said when they got in full pads, he looked even better.
Yeah.
So as far as that's concerned, there's nothing bad to say about this signing. That's not a ton of money in today's NFL environment, right? So if this doesn't work out, you spend $12 million. We spent a lot more and a lot worse. I'll say that. So
yeah. And so you look at him. You look at Granderson coming back, looks strong again in camp. Foskey making some improvements. Brzee getting a year under his belt. Peyton Turner, we don't know. I mean, we keep hoping for him, but I don't think we're relying as much on him to say we have to get production out of him.
He's first team all camp for the second year in a row.
So I think you look at those pieces, enough of a rotation, enough guys who can put pressure on the
Cam Jordan. I mean,
that leads me to that. Yeah, Cam Jordan. Maybe you don't expect as much. Maybe you can rotate him in and play a little bit less. And I expect him to be the dominant force at this stage of his career.
He was hurt almost the entire season last year too, and that kind of came out recently this year. So to see him healthy again is going to be great. You're going to have depth there. You're going to be able to rotate somebody's in. You're going to have those fresh legs when you need the fourth quarter pass rush. You know, we've been a victim of that on the other side of it. A lot of big games, and now I think you're going to see us with a kind of a NASCAR package if we can get some leads. That's going to throw other people fits. And Brian Brzee too. had a really good year last year. He had 4.5 sacks, which is not a ton but for an interior lineman, that's pretty good. For a rookie interior lineman, that's really good. Here's the other part. Two of them called back. Two of his sacks got called back for penalties on the defense on the backside.
Right.
May have been related, may have not. But let's say he had 6.5 sacks, as a rookie.
Yeah.
And so this is a guy. Now I'll tell you what. Raised some concerns when he was injured the early part of camp because he does have a little bit of that injury history from college.
Yeah.
But they said he came back and first day was making plays.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
Yeah,
what
excited about him.
Kyle, on the wide receiver front, of course, Olave continues to impress. Going to be the number one guy along with Rashid's going to be the number 1A or 2. But we have a lot of bodies in camp, and who do you think is going to really impress or step up and take maybe that third and fourth spot there?
I'm still going to go with A.T. Perry, and here's why. He has not had a great camp. He had a pretty good camp last year. The pressure was on. The knock on him, the one knock on him out of Wake Forest was that he's not a very good practice player. He could lose focus and whatnot. Yeah. Two things. One, he was a rookie in NFL camp that wasn't going to stand. A guy like Mike Thomas was in the room at the time who was really sets the tone as far as the work ethic goes for those receivers, or did last year. Also, his production either keeps him in the league and gets him paid or has him on the street looking for a job. So now, all that being said, he has not been great in practice. You can read between the lines of what Dennis Allen has been saying.
Yeah.
Time to step up and practice like I don't want to say professional, but go after it in practice. So I still think he's going to be that guy that's never going to be a great practice player, but is going to be a gamer on Sundays. But you don't leave yourself a lot of room for error if you don't show up in the preseason for a second-year guy.
Yeah, it is hopeful that, a lot of times it is that second year where they make that big leap. So we'll see out of him. Again, a lot of bodies we got there. We brought back Marquez Callaway, who may be just a camp body. We'll see how that plays out. Bub Means, it looks like a playmaker.
Bub Means a lot. And the rookie you were talking about earlier, the undrafted free agent out of Yale.
He's been impressive in camp and he had a little bit of an injury, stepped out today for a bit. But been a real kind of one of those guys to look for is kind of maybe a surprise guy making a run. Mason Tipton is the guy's name, the free agent.
Be a fan favorite in preseason if he's not hurt bad. And somebody, two names that you and I floated around before the show. Cedric Wilson, who spent some years with the Cowboys, 1 year last year at Miami. Yeah. They say he and Carr have really started to connect the last couple of practices. And then Equiminius St. Brown. Big name because it's an odd name. But a name that's been around the league and done some good things. I don't know. We haven't heard much about him so far. So I hope he's not on the tail end of his career, maybe a veteran guy who can still find enough left in the tank to go ahead and contribute as well. Yeah. But that's what camp and the games are for.
Yeah, for sure. We talked about the O-line again. It looks like Penning we got the first depth chart today. Looks like Penning is penciled in at the tackle spot. You've got Saldivari has an injury, so Lucas Patrick is penciled in as number one in a guard position. Again, the question mark there is, we keep hoping that Penning, we just hope this is not one of those ones where you're trying not to admit you made a mistake and move on. Let's hope that he can hold down that spot.
Look, can he become anything close to the guy we thought we were getting when we drafted him? Here's the thing with Trevor Penning. He has been way off. He hasn't been close. Now, but he seems much more comfortable on the right side. I think, again, this new coaching staff seems to have reached him a lot better than Doug Marrone did and the old coaching staff. Go back to the original statement about the terminology. Are you at least knowing what's going on so you can try and play fast if he's capable of playing fast? Teron Armstead has worked with him a lot in the offseason. They had a feature story about that, article about that in The Advocate. So that's another good thing. If you read between the lines when you hear Armstead talk about him, it's some really good things and that he has a long way to go. Yeah. Meaning that the skill set is there from a physicality standpoint, from a size standpoint. How fast can he learn to move his feet? How quickly is that learning curve how long is it going to take? And then can he transform it quickly enough? Because he's at this point, like you said, the starter. Here's the one thing that I will throw this lifeline out there and hope that it's somewhat of a similar deal. Jim Haslett and that staff, Randy Mueller, they drafted Jonathan Stinchcomb out of Georgia in the second round 1 year. They never played him. I think he played 2 plays he never made the lineup. They made the starting lineup. He was a backup. I don't even know if he dressed out all the time. It looked like a bust. Sean Payton gets here in his first year with so much roster turnover. They started him at right tackle. He took off. Yeah. Made Pro Bowls, played for about 9 years at that position. Yeah. Was more than a contributor. Right. He was a reliable, solid NFL starter who made a couple of Pro Bowls. Yeah. I hope that this can be a similar situation for the kid. I'm not going to put him in Jonathan Stinchcomb's class. Yeah. I think they're two completely different players. Yeah. But it's the same position. and maybe this change of scenery and coaches who say, I can work with this kid.
Yeah.
And that's going to happen. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. Some of the other positions, Kyle, you look at defensive back, the name you keep hearing is Alante Taylor having a really good camp. Of course, Marcus Lattimore having to sit some, so he's getting more reps. So I think with you add him in the mix, getting more reps, you add Kool-Aid, the rookie, coming in, I think that have a chance to be special there. Matthew, of course, has one of the safety positions. The other one is up for grabs, and they're talking about this kid Justin Simmons out of Denver, 8-year veteran and 2-time Pro Bowl last year.
Pro Bowl last 2 years, yeah.
If the money comes out right, he's looking for a lot of money. It was a money cut for the Denver Broncos. So if you could bring him in, maybe he's a complimentary piece to
Well, with our salary cap issues, we know what this is all about. We've had to see some players walk out the door and excel in other places or succeed in different organizations. This is a guy, I think, that if we can make the numbers work, if we can get him to come here, kind of sort of pencil him in. Don't pin him in. Pencil him in as a starting safety opposite Tyrann Mathieu. Because Matthew's having a whale of a camp. He's the guy that sets everybody up. He's got that spot.
Yeah.
Jordan Howard is going to be a 8 to 10 to 12-year NFL player. A lot of it's going to be special teams. Yeah. He's good. I think he knows what he's doing from that. I just don't think he has the physical skill set. It's basically he's not fast enough, is what I see. From every highlight I see from Whistle last year, he's going to be in the right spot. He's going to make some plays. He's going to be ready, but he just can't hang cover in the middle with the big receivers. So Jonathan Abram is a former not a first-round pick for the Raiders. Very good out of Mississippi State. Big-time hitter. Came up big in a few games for us last year, but before that didn't play for 7 or 8 or 9 games.
Yeah.
So who knows what you have there. So I think there will be certain teams he will be really good against and certain teams he'll be exposed against. Justin Simmons changes all of that.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so I hope we can figure something out, or there's somebody on the back end of that depth chart that's young and hasn't been given enough opportunity yet and shows in camp that he can contribute and maybe take one of those spots. Because that, at this point, we're finding out in the last 48 hours, seems to be somewhat of a liability.
Yeah, and this kid, if he's looking for money, we may have more leverage as this goes further in. And maybe you get him to sign a 1-year deal if nothing else comes up and you let him prove himself for another extension. The last couple of pieces, I guess, tight end, of course, we had an issue. Jawan Johnson, expecting a lot of him last year, was a little bit disappointment early, came on late, again, injured now, so not going to be available till maybe the first game or so. But putting Foster Moreau, at the one spot in that depth chart is a little bit of a concern because we don't have the proven guy there.
I think he's as reliable as they come. Reliable usually is your number 2 tight end.
Yeah.
Taysom Hill is a tight end, but he's not an inline tight end. So you have this kid, Dalen Hockert, is it? The kid out of Colorado State, undrafted free agent.
Yeah.
Now, I saw some games he played. He was outstanding. A huge game against Colorado. Had a pretty good secondary. Yeah. A big game there. How this kid went undrafted, I don't really know. Size-wise, he's like 6'3", 245. That's not huge for a tight end. So something's got to give there. Juwan Howard, I think, is on his way back if he hasn't made it back yet. But he needs to have a standout year, okay? Last year, I thought there were times when he looked a little disinterested. A couple of balls off the hands in the Detroit game. One that was a pick six. Yeah. So, or at least an interception. But I think you had more of that going on last year from just the mindset of the team.
Yeah.
I think we're kind of beaten early on. Once we lost it to Green Bay, we had that lead in the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
The Carr thing was bad. The Winston and the sidelines, the fan base was negative about it. I'll give you an example of this. Carr takes off last half of the season, last 7 or 8 games, whatever you want to call it. Playing very, very well. Throws an incomplete pass in the second or third series in a home game. And the lady behind me, boo, you stink. He hadn't played a bad game in about 5 weeks. And okay, so that's what we do now? That's all she knows.
He had a stretch where I think he had 10 touchdowns and 1 interception over some stretch.
He throws an incomplete pass and he stinks.
Right.
That's you don't know your football, but that needs to go away. All the negativity needs to go away.
Yeah, and then finally running back, of course, we got the same trio going in. By committee, Kamara the one. Miller still seems to be missing some time with injury, and then we got Jamal Williams, of course, who didn't get as much playing time as we thought he might last year.
I don't hear a bunch about him in camp right now. I do know this. I like the guy.
Yeah.
Big, tough, had a gigantic year the year before we signed him.
Yeah.
I hope they're sleeping on him because of last year's performance, last year's statistics, basically, and that he's that number 2. Tell you right now, this offense is tailor-made for Kendre Miller, and he has done nothing to seize the moment.
Yeah.
And again, reading between the lines from the verbiage, he's in trouble.
Yeah.
So he's going to possibly. I don't think they would get rid of the guy because he's a third-round pick. I wouldn't be shocked to see him put him on some type of injured reserve for at least the first 6 weeks. He needs to grow up and get his stuff in gear.
Yeah.
Surprise guy has been Jordan Mims. This is a guy who was on the practice squad last year.
Right.
Fresno State guy. He's looked really good, they say.
Yeah.
So I think the Saints are very comfortable going into the season with Kamara, Jamal Williams, and this Jordan Mims guy if they have to. Kendra Miller needs to figure out if he wants to play football or not.
Yeah, I mean, that'll put the pressure on him. If he really wants to play, we'll show him.
Yeah.
All right, any other thoughts, Kyle? We have our first preseason game Saturday. You never know who's going to sit and who's going to play in preseason, but at least we get a chance to see him list them up.
I'd like to see how we, new running scheme and everything else. I'd like to see how we run the ball. I want to see our new scheme on offense. It's going to feature more motion. It's susceptible to more motion penalties, but so what? You got to give them a different look. I want to see how comfortable that O-line look. Particular plays I'm watching Saturday night, Trevor Penning, A1. I want to really see him. I think Lucas Pack, look, I was all excited about Nick Saldivari, the paisan from Old Dominion.
Yeah.
But and he had a very good offseason, but hurt now, and Lucas Patrick seems to have taken that job.
Yeah.
And Patrick's been starting in the league on and off for a long time. He's a good player. Again, salary cap cut. By the time we get advantage of some of that. So that's kind of what I'm going to watch, and I want to see, Paulson Adebo, I think right now is the number one corner.
Yeah.
Marshawn is a question mark.
Yeah.
This is every year now he's hurt. So, but those are the players, and the safety opposite Tyrann Mathieu. I keep a real close eye on that. So, and nobody getting hurt. That's what
there you go. It's healthy, right? Availability is the best ability, right?
That's right.
Kyle, moving on to LSU and the college ranks. What do you see in LSU going on?
So the rankings came out. The Tigers are preseason number 12. Obviously, it's going to be a different looking team on offense, but they're going to be good on offense again. But when you lose the Heisman Trophy winner, and 2 first-round picks at wide receiver, and Logan Diggs, who was the leading running back rusher, entered the portal. He's at Ole Miss now. You got some faces to replace. Now the O-line is intact, save I think one position in that center, and the centers look really good. They're going to be relying more on the run. Caleb Jackson is the bell cow as it stands right now. Incredible physical specimen, Leonard Fournette type kind of guy. Really good, showed flashes last year, but I don't think he was even there as early enrollee last year. I think he got there in the fall and still contributed some. He is, this is his spot now. John Emery, who was in the portal, ended up coming back, coming off of ACL. That's a kid from Destrans.
Yeah.
His 5th year. He's looked really good so far, too. You have Josh Williams, who always contributes, and another a freshman coming in who's just getting here in the fall named Caden Durham out of DeSoto, Texas. One of the best running backs in the country, 100-meter guy. Watch out when he does know what he's doing and gets a chance to contribute. So you're going to see them rely, I'm saying these things because they're going to rely a lot more on the run this year. Last year, I think part of their running game was that Daniels drop back, pick a lane and go.
Yeah.
The big problem last year was the defense. They were god-awful. Yeah. And so the whole staff has been replaced. That's a good thing. And I'm not pounding on the other guys, but this is an experienced defensive coordinator in Blake Baker who's young, aggressive, knows what he's doing. He's going to put Harold Perkins in a position to alter the game.
Yeah.
They're thin at defensive tackle, but they got a few transfers in, not high-end guys, but guys who you just need to hold your own in the box right there because everything else around them is good. Yeah. Secondary, the number one corner so far through camp seems to be the kid out of Rummel, Ashton Stamps in his 2nd year, and then the rest of the guys are kind of filling in. The safety spots look good, so cautiously optimistic about LSU's defense. Hell, can't get any worse, right?
Yeah, right.
So I think the Tigers are going to be really good this year, and I think they're going to score a lot of points. It's just going to look a little different. Not quite the quick strike capability in terms of the quarterback tucking it and running 84 yards. Yeah. But Nuss can move. He's more of a Joe Burrow type player. Okay, and that's 2 Heisman Trophy winners we're talking about before him.
Yeah.
So he'll be fine. And Nuss will have a big year. Just a few guys need to step up at the receiver position, and they'll be good.
Yeah. Anything on the Tulane Green Wave and the new era in Tulane?
I like this Summerall coach. Yeah. I like this guy. Yeah. He's been a winner everywhere he goes. Yeah. Plus, I found out he loves to read mafia books. So, Bada-Bing. Yeah. But this guy's a winner. And so, quarterback battle brewing between the Thompson kid and Kai Horton. And that's going to tell a lot. I don't think they're going to throw it quite as much. Yeah. He's more of a physical-minded coach, but they're going to throw it still. And look, Tulane football is fun again, so that's a great thing.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of folks interested down in down on Broadway, Willow Street.
Yeah, that's right. You got Mid City Pizza right across the street from the stadium if you need to grab a bite.
Can't go wrong.
As well as the location at 4400 Bank Street.
Yeah, assuming Entergy can keep the lights on over there.
Right, and the sewage and water board doesn't get attacked by Mylar balloons.
Yeah, but that's just part of doing business.
Yeah, right. It's the cost of doing business.
Kyle, I wanted to touch on the Olympics real quick.
Absolutely.
We got, of course, an exciting time. We went to the second week of the Olympics. As usual, U.S. excelling in swimming and track and field and gymnastics, rolling up the numbers. We are leading 94 total medals, way ahead of the pack. We have a couple of medals, gold medals ahead of China for the gold medal race. Hoops, the men and women continue to march on and have not lost yet. Simone Biles kind of her comeback in gymnastics from last year. Disappointing Olympics last time. She wins the overall gold, all-around gold.
Nice.
We win the Lyles wins the 100 meter. So that's the fastest man, of course, competition, the title. Gabby Thomas in the 200 meters gold for the women's U.S. Quincy Hall comes.
Ivy Leaguer too.
Yeah, Quincy Hall comes back and wins the 400 meter men's today. Great, exciting finish. Cole Hocker shocks in the mile, the 1500 meters rather. And the shot putter Ryan Crosby from the U.S. wins his third straight gold.
That's the Oregon kid out of Oregon.
Third straight Olympics, and then Katie Ledecky, of course, rewrites the record book.
Her own record book.
Own record book in the swimming competition. It was exciting to see that 50. Most of those swimming things are really tight and close finishes. But when you have something like a 1500 meter, you can put some distance. And she won the freestyle. She was going that way, and all the other swimmers are going this way.
High five.
Yeah,
good game.
It was a pretty impressive finish. I had a couple local connections here too. We had Sha'Carri Richardson, who of course got eliminated from last year. She had some issues with the positive test for cannabis, so she ends up finishing second, getting the silver medal this time around. Mondo Duplantis, again, just guy who is a phenomenal pole vaulter. He doesn't compete for the U.S., but went to LSU, of course.
There's something to that. I want you to finish his stats, but he's catching a little bit of flack. People are like, why isn't he competing for the U.S.? Well, his mom's born, she's from Sweden. Right. And his father and his mother are his coaches, but really his dad's his pole vaulting coach. Yeah. So the U.S. Olympic team, his father would not be able to coach him. That's one of the reasons. But the other reason is he left LSU after his freshman year. He's a god in Sweden. In Europe, track guys make over 10, 12 guys and girls. If they're stars, they not only the corporate sponsorship and the sponsorship you get, but the advertising stuff, the branding, and he makes a fortune off of that. And just as a track athlete, I mean, he's a $12, $13 million a year guy in Sweden. You don't make that in track and field here. But also, remember Lolo Jones had this great run going. It was going to be her year to win the 110 high hurdles, and she fell during the Olympic trials and never got to go to the Olympics. In Sweden, there is no Olympic trials. It's not necessarily one bad day you could lose it all. Right. So he was going he was on the team regardless. Yeah. That's another thing that's an advantage to him. But his mother's Swedish. He lives there. He kicks ass with the income over there for as far as track goes. So that's one of the reasons why. Also, the greatest loss in the history of sports had to be the French pole vaulting guy, right?
Yeah, so that. Well, talk about pole. Duplantis,
there is no agony of defeat.
Yeah, there's no, not anymore.
It's a thrill of defeat for him. He's excited.
But Duplantis goes 20 feet 6 inches, and he breaks the world record and gets the gold on his last jump. So very exciting. And he did. They showed some footage. It was really great. He showed some footage. His dad built him a little pole vault. From the time he was like 4 or 5 years old, a little pole vault thing in his backyard, and just kept growing it and growing it. I mean, kids still literally since he's a little toddler has been doing the pole vault. But he said, he said it was. What were you thinking on the last jump? He said it was so loud. I was just trying to concentrate. He said it reminded me of Death Valley. Yeah. He said I think that experience helped me being in Death Valley on Saturday night.
Yeah, so sure.
It was something great.
His brother Antoine finished his LSU baseball career, I believe, number one, possibly number 2 all-time hits. He was a 4-year starter for the LSU baseball team.
Right. And then finally, the local connections. Of course, we had the beach volleyball. Kristen Nuss, Taryn Cloth.
I coached their brother Pete.
They represented well. Baseball. I mean, local, of course, Kristen Nuss at Mount Carmel, local product, and then Taryn Cloth from a different location, but they all both played together at LSU. We're undefeated in the pool round, 3-0, but lost their first in the elimination.
Yeah, I saw that yesterday or the day before, I believe. Tough, but great representation for the state, and they showed her on the bus going to the hotel at one point. Kristen Nuss had her Mount Carmel Academy socks on. Did you see that?
There you go.
A little MCA socks. So.
And certainly young. I mean, they're a world class team. It's certainly young enough to get back in another 4 years and maybe get to LA. So All right, Cal, about wraps up for the sports. Just want to again mention our spot. We mentioned Mid-City Pizza, of course. It's Bank Street, a sit-down location.
4400 Bank Street.
And we got kind of a takeout little spot across from the Turchin Field over there on
Takeout delivery right across Claiborne from Tulane's
there.
campus.
And of course, always Luca Eats.
7329 Cone Street, breakfast and lunch. Closed on Mondays, but full array of coffees, panini sandwiches, and the ever-famous Oreo beignets.
There you go. And then, of course, Brian Scheck's United State Farm. All your insurance needs right there on Causeway Boulevard in Metairie.
That's it.
All right. We'll be back as Saints get into their preseason games and on into the
Saturday night, first one.
Saturday night. We are
the Italian Sports Guy.
Bada-Boom.
Bada-Bing.